Today, my guest you've seen across WCW, ECW, WWE, TNA, AEW, the list goes on and on. He is a former WCW Cruiserweight Champion, Hardcore Champion, and World Tag Team Champion. Whether you know him as Devon, Storm, or CrowBar, he is a legend within professional wrestling, and I am happy to have him on. Chris, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks so much for having me on.
I greatly appreciate you taking the time out today. I know you're very busy every day, and I'm glad that we took some time out to knock this out today.
No problem. Me too, man. It was a little hard to get going, but we finally got it done.
So going back, were you an athlete prior to professional wrestling? What was it that drew you into professional wrestling back then?
I played football well. I grew up a heavy kid, a weird kid. I was definitely that was back before they were diagnosing ADD and ADHD and neurodivergency on a regular basis. So I was that weird kid, but I definitely played football well. And around the time I started playing football, that's when my love for pro wrestling started to grow. I actually discovered it very, very young. I would watch from my bedroom as my dad and my older brother would watch wrestling late at night. It used to come on at like 11, 12 o'clock at night. I would crack my door and I would watch diagonally from my bedroom to the living room. And my love affair with pro wrestling started right there. And as I progressed through grade school, through middle school, through high school, that love grew. And it got to the point where just watching it was not enough.
Now, back then, how hard was it to try to find a way to get into professional wrestling?
There weren't many wrestling schools, but my sophomore year of high school, I became aware that Iron Mike Sharpe was opening up a wrestling school with a independent promoter called Tom Rumsby. The school was approximately an hour 20, an hour half from my house, not super close, but closer than the Monster Factory, which was a very popular site, which would have been about a 2 hour ride. They were planning to open in like, I think 6, 7 months. I got a job as a busboy at a local catering hall. I worked Friday nights. I worked doubles on Saturday. I worked doubles on Sunday and just worked like crazy to gather up the amount of money to be trained. At that time, in order to get in, it wasn't like today where there was monthly payments. You know, they wanted it up front or half up front. So you had to come in with money.
What was your first initial thoughts of seeing professional wrestling like that and getting in the ring and training? Was there anything that may have came natural for you or was harder at the beginning for you?
Mike Sharpe had a school in a strip mall. He had a low boy ring, which is probably maybe 2 feet off the ground max. So it did not look like the rings we saw on TV, but nonetheless, when I walked through those ropes for the first time, there was no feeling like it. It was the best feeling in the world. It was a low boy, really stiff ring. Every bump hurt. But at that point, for 16 and a half, a 17-year-old Chris Ford, it was an incredible experience.
How long did you train before you started working some matches?
Uh, I want to say about maybe 3 months. And Mike Sharpe would have these school shows. So every other Saturday, in order to give his students an opportunity to practice their craft, like family and local people would come to school and they would watch them. So, the first match I had was a battle royal, of course, nice and easy. And in that battle royal, I worked with a good friend of mine, The Wall, who we later matched up with in WCW, which was really, really kind of cool. My first match, and then later on, so many years later, getting to work a program on a national level for a major company was pretty awesome. So, like 2, 3 months or so.
When you started working your matches, did you stay in that general area, and how long before you started to branch out a little bit?
We worked there probably for about a year and a half. Like he had these Saturday shows. It it was a lot harder to break in to the indie scene at that time. It was a lot different than it was here. Uh, you, you had to be vetted. You had to prove yourself. And Mike taught us, but Mike didn't go out of his way to get us work either. And in hindsight, you see the mentality. He was a guy on the circuit doing enhancement work for WWE and whoever else, and doing a lot of indie shows. Mike Sharpe was all over the indie shows back then, so you kind of understand why he'd want to teach us, get our money, but not want to really help us go on the same shows that he was. And he was a great guy, great guy. But I understand why we had to really grind to get our own dates. And in hindsight, it's a good thing. It makes you a better person. It makes you more self reliant, and it teaches you a life skill. So no bad blood about it. I thank him for it. It was great.
When do you feel like you first started getting your name out there within professional wrestling?
Definitely when I started hooking up with Tommy Fierro and Dennis Carluzzo, NWA New Jersey, working with guys like Al Snow and Sabu and Tracy Smothers, guys like that.
And how long before you started, once you started getting your name out there, when do you feel like you got that break that you were working hard towards?
Definitely the first match with Sabu is the match that put me out on the map. Dennis booked it. Carluzzo down in Woodbury, New Jersey. Yeah, Woodbridge, no, Woodbury, and he teamed me up in the match with Sabu against each other rather. And he really didn't have to give me nothing, and he was so generous. He let me do all the stuff that I wanted to do. He let this green kid, shine and really show what I could do. That's why I'll always be eternally grateful to Sabu and all he did for my career, because that was the match that really got me out there.
How did you start doing some work with the WWF back in the day?
My very first match was actually a dark match for Bill DeMott. He also lived up around here. He was actually the guy that showed me how to moonsault, how to Frankenstein, or do some of the Japanese stuff. And he had a tryout as Crash the Terminator, and he brought me up as his enhancement talent. So that was actually my first match with WWE, and it's just and after that, WCW actually came before WWE. I did Nitro for back when it was an hour show. It was me against Conan. The show opened up with Bill DeMott as Hugh Morris against Macho Man Randy Savage. The second match, I actually watched this show the other night. Scotty Riggs against Loch Ness, me and Conan. Then there was a Ric Flair promo, and then Hulk Hogan against Arn. So I was on that show. I think I was 21, and my mind was blown. So and that's back when it was in an hour. So there was only 4 matches, and it was very tight. And I got to be on that show, which was amazing. All guys that I grew up watching: Arn, Hulk, Macho. You know what I mean? Just an incredible experience.
Doing both of those early on, which one felt meant more to you back then?
The WCW one, for sure. It was Nitro at that time. It was the hottest show going. They had that cool entranceway with the smoke and the lights, and it just was a huge production. Where the match with Bill DeMott for WWE was a dark match on a house show.
So, did you know what direction, working with both companies, did you know where you would have liked to have gone? Or did you prefer to go to WC, if given the opportunity back then with both contracts, where do you think you would have went with WCW still or WWF back then?
I never had a contract. I was always nightly. Like I pursued pro wrestling and my physical therapy degree at the same time. So both WWE and WCW were well aware that I was a full-time student as well. So that was never even an option or on the table. I was going to complete my physical therapy curriculum. Thank God I did. And and like so either which way, it's I always tell people when I got in ring for the first time at Mike Sharpe's, it was an awesome experience. At that point, if all I did was indie wrestling, I would have been more than satisfied just to do
Yep.
it and it's fun. Just like I do now. I'm 52 years old. I still work really hard. I like working with the younger guys, doing wild stuff, stunts that are safe. Uh, but there's, this is my full time business here.
Hmm.
Wrestling is fun. It's pocket money for vacation. I'm generally out there because I enjoy doing it. So, uh, even at that time, WWE, WCW, either would have been great because I really didn't expect to do either. I was satisfied just doing it on an independent level. So
Hmm.
both things, whatever came first was, just icing on the cake, just gravy and, just something that I was grateful for. And I still am.
Yeah, I've interviewed a couple of people, and I never knew about the nightly agreement with WCW. And there was another guy, Roadblock, I interviewed,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
he started explaining it, and then I never knew that that was an option back then.
Yeah. They called you when they needed you. Yep. I did Saturday night. I did a few nitros, things like
Mhm.
that.
And thank God you stayed the course and got your degree still, because I don't think a lot of people would have made that decision back then, especially.
I always knew wrestling is finite. I always bring up this discussion about Eric Bischoff. And I saw him at he was doing an appearance and like I came up and I spoke. He was doing a Q&A with fans and it was like 5 minutes from my house and it was great to see him. So I started out, I go, Eric hired me to WCW. He also fired me from WCW. But wrestling is finite. Uh, I Everything for me goes back to Star Wars. Unless you're Luke, Han, Leia, C-3PO, whatever, you're not going to be in all the movies. You're not. And everybody has a role in professional wrestling, unless you're The Rock, Ric Flair, John Cena, whoever. It's very likely that your career has a shelf life, or you may come and go, but very rarely does one pro wrestler have a constant work. You go back to the independents and stuff like that. And I always knew that. So when I was with WCW, I saved all my money. That got me a down payment on my house. That gave me enough money to build my business out without
Mhm.
taking a loan. So I'll always be grateful and thank Eric Bischoff for that. Uh, I can never talk bad about the guy. He's great. But that was something I knew very early on was I would go to independent shows and I would see guys that I watched on TV as a fan. And a lot of the older guys, it was great to see them. I was awestruck, but they were miserable. And it was because they were there because they had to be there. They
Mhm.
weren't there because they enjoyed it or because they wanted to be there. It's because they had to do it. And I saw that very early on, so I knew that I can't end up in a situation like that. Now I have this. I have a great staff. I have 4 PTs on staff, which allow me some freedom when I want to get out to do independent shows. So having a backup plan, having a career has actually empowered me to
Mhm.
continue doing wrestling under my terms. And I'm probably having more fun now than I've ever had.
And you deserve all that success.
Thanks, man.
So
And it's,
how what? Go ahead.
just wrestling now is just the love of with the game.
Hmm.
Pure and simple. It's not a money thing. It's not trying to go here or there. It's just genuinely love doing it, and I could do it on my own terms now, and it's pretty awesome.
And rightfully so.
Yeah.
How was your time with WCW? Is there any particular moments that mean more to you, especially?
Well, the most shocking I'd say was I was doing Devon Storm with dark hair on the Saturday night show. Then they came up with the Crowbar character. We did a vignette where I met David Flair and Daphne at the gas station, and then the very next week, I believe we win the tag belts, which is crazy. So much more than I ever. Getting a character like Crowbar. You go for on a Saturday night. I was basically a cruiserweight guy, which was great. I love that style, and that's something that I always loved doing. Uh, but then they transferred me from that to actually having a character, a wrestling gimmick, like character,
Hmm.
which is something that I never thought I would be given
Hmm.
or have a chance to do, and it was mind blowing. And then the following week, David and I win the tag belts, and that was just pretty mind blowing right out of the gate. You
Oh
know,
yeah. Mentally, were you prepared for that?
uh, no, but it was great, and I'd say that, and then hands down at the last Starrcade, wrestling for the hardcore title against Terry Funk, something that
Hmm.
I never in a million years imagined would transpire. You know, Starrcade, for people that don't know, that was WCW's version of WrestleMania. And
Hmm.
the very last Starrcade, me and Terry Funk for a title, if you would have told 14, 15-year-old Chris Ford that, forget about it.
Did you pitch anything during your time in WCW, or maybe something that didn't come to fruition during your time there that you would have liked to have
I,
done?
I gave little ideas here or there, but then you generally knew to keep your mouth shut. You know what I mean. When you start giving ideas, people think you're trying to be uncreative or this or that. So I just did whatever they told me. If I was asked for ideas, I would offer it, but I pretty much just kept to myself and just did what like I followed orders. That's it.
Hmm. What championship meant the most to you that you've won?
Yeah, but the tag was such a surprise and really cool.
Hmm.
But with the hardcore, I got to wrestle Terry Funk in a singles once, and then the next pay per view, three-way match with Terry Funk and Meng, who I loved Meng growing up as well. So
Hmm.
it's hard. It's toss up between those two. The cruiserweight was very shady, and anyway, was it mine? Was it Daphne's? Who knows? But we're definitely tossed up between the other two for different reasons. Emotionally and just stuff like that.
When WCW was going through its peaks and valleys and its downfalls, did you know that professional wrestling was something you were going to continue to pursue when you could see the writing on the wall? Did you reach out to any other people at that time when you saw the downfall coming?
I always hoped to. You know what I mean? I always knew that if it was for WCW or even a smaller group, I'd be wrestling somewhere. And 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 I was prepared. WCW ended, and even when I was with WCW, when I wasn't on the road, sometimes I'll have you on every Nitro, and then other times your character's not being really used. You're off a couple of weeks here or there. When I wasn't working, I did physical therapy at home. I worked per diem at a hospital and a sports care place. So during WCW, I was a full time wrestler and part time physical therapist. When I got released, I became a full time physical therapist, part time wrestler. So it was just an easy flip
Hmm.
flop. So I did. I never thought about it too much. I didn't get caught up in all the politics or the writing on the wall or the and doom and doom and gloom speech like what's going to happen is this person. Are they
Hmm.
going to close the company? This, that, the other thing. I always just kind of wrote it out because, you know, I I just go with it. I just roll with it, and thankful for all I have in wrestling as well as real life. So it was never really a thought. I'm a real basic guy.
But I will give you credit because you're the first person I've talked to who saw the bigger picture and saw that there is a shelf life, like you said. Because a lot of people, I feel like, get caught up in the moment and then they don't think about what 10 months from here or 5 years
Yeah,
from now. And you had, you were smart enough to know that everything ends. And
yeah,
and when, WCW ended, you even during WCW, you had your shit together.
yeah. I love pro wrestling. I love doing it. I love the art form. Uh, I love watching it. I love thinking about it, coming up with spots, coming up with promos, stuff like this. But I can honestly say, knowing the way the business is, if I had to depend on pro wrestling to support myself or my family, I'd probably hate it.
Hmm. I can understand that. After WCW closed, did you have any communication with WWE at the time?
I had several dark matches.
Hmm.
I worked John Cena. That's up on YouTube somewhere. Rick Fuller, Mike Bell, Joey Mercury, and I think that might be it as far as dark matches go. And just nothing materialized. WCW closed, ECW closed, and you had all this talent
Hmm.
flocking to one spot. And I just wasn't one of the guys that they had a priority of getting, unfortunately. Or fortunately, I always say that me not getting signed was the best thing to never happen to me. Had I got signed, never would have never would have met my wife, never would have had my kids, never would have opened my business. So I hate to get preachy, but I am a very like faithful guy. It was definitely
Hmm.
God's plan. Had I gotten signed, I wouldn't be where I am right now. So it was, I always say the best thing to never happen to me.
Did you balance those two out after your dark matches with WWE at the time, or was it full time doing what you do now, and then did you take a little break from wrestling, or was
Uh,
it just you balanced it out?
once I got married and we started having kids, I backed up a little bit. I stayed very
Hmm.
local because work was busy. I wanted to spend time with my kids, my family. So I did it less. There was probably a period of like 2, 3, 4 years, probably closer to 3 or 4, where I like maybe wrestled once every 2, 3, maybe 4 months. You know,
Hmm.
not like now. And it was just because that's just where life was at that point. And there was
What?
no urgency to try to make it to a
Hmm.
bigger company. It was more, okay, get my work going, take care of my family, do this, and if I find time to wrestle here or there, so be it.
What made you want to dip your toe back in more to professional wrestling all these years later?
Uh,
Like I know you've been consistent over the years, but what made you want to do it more?
I want to say 2014. I was actually probably ready to retire, and local promoter Ricky O called me, and he ran a building in my hometown. He said, "Hey, you want to work with this guy Joey Janela? He's up and coming. Blah blah blah." He sent me some video. I'm like, "Yeah, I'd really like to work him." And I didn't tell nobody, but I was like, "Hey, okay, maybe this will be my last one." You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And I went out there with Joey. We killed each other, had a great time. And I always blame him. I go, Joey, it's all your fucking fault. I go, he lit that fire back up inside me, and like the mob, dragged me right back in, and I've been going ever since. 10 years ago, I actually had both knees replaced. Most people don't realize that, and it's enabled me to work so much better now, and run and jump and do. I believe I'm faster and I work better now than I did about 10, 15 years ago as a result of the knee replacement.
So how is professional wrestling for you since 2014? Because now we have conventions, there's shows everywhere. It's more since then. I feel like wrestling has really started to grow and grow and grow, and it's more. It's not such a dirty word. It was a dirty word for a lot of people. I feel
Yeah,
like back in the day, and it's more popular, and it's been more popular since that 2014
yeah.
time. So. How does it feel all these years later? All these fans still love Crowbar and they still want more of Crowbar.
It's really, really cool. Like, especially up in ACW, they run an incredible show up in Poughkeepsie, New York. They've been selling out the MJN Center. 2,000 fans. A lot of people are not aware of them. They're incredible. Uh, Probably one of the best indie shows anywhere. Such great production, great talent, great crowd. And those fans are very welcoming and great. And I have a great time up there. All the conventions and meet and greets and stuff like that. A lot of fun meeting the fans. And like I said, just real grateful to keep doing this, and
Hmm.
real grateful for all the interactions with the fans, and seeing the guys behind the scenes. It's really a good time right now. It's really good time. There's no pressure. And again, I'm out there because I genuinely love it, and I'm entertaining myself.
Has there been any moments since that match with Joey Janela that mean something personally to you since you dipped your toe and you're back now in wrestling all the time?
Well, then fast forward 2014 to, I forget when it was. I want to say 2021. I worked
Hmm.
with Joey again for AEW on Dark.
Hmm.
That was a whole lot of fun. Since then, I've worked several times with Danny Doring, who's one of my best friends. That I met after we never talked during ECW, which is crazy. We met afterwards, and actually, I'll see him tomorrow for Father's Day. Our kids get along, our wives get along, so we're going to spend a day together tomorrow. But I've had a few matches with Danny that are always. I love working with Danny. It's just really great. Just all the young talent. Uh, Casey Navarro recently, Mike Bailey, Steve Macklin. I don't leave nobody out. The great match at Effie, we tore the house down for GCW last spring or summer, whatever it was. Uh, like I can't name them all. There's so many good ones.
If you had any advice to give to anybody getting into professional wrestling, what would it be?
Uh, Make sure you have something else to fall back on. That will enable you. That will empower you to play the long game. And if you're getting into pro wrestling because you generally love pro wrestling, of course, everybody wants to get in because they love it and they want to make money. But everybody somewhere, I think, loves what we do. If you have something else to fall back on when things aren't going right in wrestling, or if you're knocking on doors and you're just not opening, it buys you time. It
Hmm.
buys you time to do your stuff, and real important. And also important, I think it's too, and it's a lot of people don't want to talk about it. Injuries happen. Find some kind. Try not to be an uninsured wrestler. A
Yeah.
lot of wrestlers are uninsured, and I've seen a lot of people end up in debt and in trouble because of that. You try if you can have some kind of coverage.
Yeah.
For yourself. You know what I mean? Those are the two biggest things. And as far as wrestling, don't ever lose the love, don't ever lose the desire. And part of that is having something to fall back on because
Mhm.
it's way less pressure.
Do you have any upcoming appearances?
ACW July 18th, I believe it is in Poughkeepsie again. Me and Mance Warner, which should be a lot of fun. Good old Manster.
Where can people reach out to you at?
I'm mainly on Twitter. I'm on Instagram too, which I'm still trying to figure out. That's how we talk, but I'm not that great on it. I know how to hit share or accept, but I'm more versed on with the Twitter. On Twitter, I'm at WCW CrowBar. On Instagram, I think I'm at WCW CrowBar 74, my birth year, right? I think
I
that's
mean,
what it is. Yes.
but yes, yes, it is.
On Instagram, I usually share stuff. On Twitter, I usually post stuff. So
Well, I know you're busy and I know you got to get back to work. I just want to say thank you for what you've done for professional wrestling, what you
thank
continue
you,
to do,
man.
sir. It's truly been an honor to be able to talk to you a little bit today about your career.
Thanks so much, man.
And if there's ever anything that I can do, please feel free to reach out.
I absolutely will. Thank you guys so much. Lots of
Thank you.
fun.